Welcome. Welcome to the Revolution of Purpose podcast with Tracy and Kova.
We've got an important episode for us today as we've been going back and forth about telling our hero's journey and what's got us up to the point in which we're actually recording this. And today we're going to be talking about Tracy and the supernatural aid and the threshold guardians that she met along the way. And I know you might not know what that means, but it's a specific part of the hero's journey, which is really, for Tracy, you want to just give a quick review of what we talked about with you in this last...
I'd like you to actually explain what that is. So I'd like you to walk people through the hero's journey, why that's important to you. Give some context.
Yeah, so there was I think it was an archaeologist, I can't remember what kind of scientist he was, but by the name of Joseph Campbell, that basically went all over the world and studied different types of cultures, anything from indigenous people to colonized individuals. And he found that there was a specific storytelling framework that was the same across all these different types of people. And so there's a very specific type of way to tell a story in a way that actually helps people understand the inner transformation that occurred and the external achievement that occurred from basically not being able to return to somewhere that you were before, and the journey of basically self-actualization. And all the famous movies are based off this specific structure. And that's why I've been bringing it to us and being like, okay, so last time we were like, what was the call that you experience in which you couldn't go back to where you came from, but you started a new path? And we went like really deep into that. And then today is going to be about like the people that you met along the way that helped you get along the path.
So if you were to describe the journey through the sequences that you're mentioning, what is that sequence?
Well, I mean, there's a whole massive book on this, so I'm not going to go that in depth into it right now. But from a speaking perspective, there's a who you were before and then who you were after, and then the wall that you hit that was preventing you from getting to somewhere you were trying to go, basically. And to instead achieve the thing that you're wanting to achieve, there's an inner transformation that must occur that results in an outer transformation. So that's like a very high level version of what the hero's journey is. There's a book on this, something about Hero with 1,000 Faces, I believe is what it's called, by Joseph Campbell.
Beautiful. So on the last time that Kova and I spoke and she was interviewing me, I was diving into the call, which was really me getting fired from my tech job, which was mutual at the time, as well as a 5-year relationship ending and going on this whole journey after that.
Yeah, and if you're wanting to listen to more of that specific experience, go 2 episodes back from this one right now. But I'd like to go ahead and get started. Are you ready?
3.
Are you ready for the limelight to be on you?
I am.
So last time we covered that transformation that occurred from you stepping out of the life that you were in into the new life that was ahead of you. And we talked about the experience you had at a music festival for the first time that helped you really see and actually be yourself for the first time and be accepted for being yourself. You also talked about a specific friend that helped you transition from your old life to your new life. I'd like to hear from you, the people that helped you along the way to really get to what you consider to be, I think, the tipping point, which was Burning Man for you.
Yeah.
What I heard last time we talked about your story was the sense of belonging in a community that was much more self-expressed than you had ever experienced before. And this led you to start doing stuff like that more often, and even had you transfer friend groups.
Yes. 100%.
So I'd like to know, once you actually like literally left your previous partner's apartment that you guys shared a home with, who was it that you met along the way that really helped you move further along the path?
So I decided to start dating again. And this was, I won't talk about the cons of that decision. However,
so there were cons to that decision.
There were some cons. So I chose to start dating again and found myself in all these opportunities with incredible humans. So I went on dating apps and found someone through there that we were moving through a really similar experience with our exes. We both had exes of 5 years. as in we had just broken up with our exes of 5 years and the relationship ended. So there was this interesting kind of trauma bonding there where we were kind of helping each other move through that process of letting go of the old. And then I also found two incredible people who guided me in very different ways. One was helping me to feel more autonomous because he was emotionally available at the time. And it was almost like a facade of relationship where we were kind of dating, but it was really that I was learning how to be by myself on my own and take responsibility for my own life. And this other connection, she was, how would I describe her? What's coming up for me is this one pivotal moment where I was about to go to a 3-day festival that was going to be deeply immersed in nature and connecting to nature. And it was at the same exact time as Burning Man. And I felt like Burning Man was supposed to happen for me. It just felt really true in my body that I was supposed to be there, and I didn't know why. And I had a friend who was going in her van with another friend that they had been friends for like 10 years. They're like besties. And she was like, Tracy, I have a ticket for you.
So let's start from the beginning. Okay. So we talked about Allison last time and how Allison really helped you like get out of your previous partner's place. So she got you out of where you were into new landscape, basically.
Yes.
And then you met a number of these different relationships. So will you tell me why that first relationship was so important and pivotal to your transformational journey?
Are we trauma bonded, basically?
Yeah. Yeah. Why was that so important to your transformational journey?
So that one was more a sense of camaraderie and understanding of the other person's perspective, because she was more similar to my ex and her ex was more similar to me. So it worked in this really beautiful way where it brought awareness to what she was experiencing with her ex so that I could more deeply understand my ex. Mm-hmm. And then it was also bringing awareness to me about how I was showing up in relation to how her ex was showing up. So it actually brought this level of self-awareness through the external, through her sharing stories. And it was really, really helpful for me to become more aware of how the situation occurred and what was needed.
Okay, so let's go deeper into that. So how the situation occurred and what was needed.
So essentially, I was in a place where I was emotionally unavailable, and that created the environment for my relationship to die because it wasn't being fed by love and connection and honesty and transparency. And so there were just more and more walls that were building between us.
Yeah. And you got to see that through this person that you dated.
It was more the transition process and how she was moving through it. And I learned a little bit from her, and I feel very grateful for that experience. But for the most part, it was really just being like, I'm not the only one moving through this.
Okay. And what did that mean to you?
It was just, I'm not alone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you weren't alone through the transition period because you had that relationship with that person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the man that I was connecting with at the time had also gone through a recent breakup. So we were all in this similar stage of life, of transitioning from the old into the new and figuring out what's next.
Got it. And so is the second person that you're talking about the second relationship you were talking about?
Well, they were all simultaneous.
Oh, okay.
I was very poly at the time.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
And for people who don't know what poly is, do you want to explain what that is really quick?
So polyamory is essentially being deeply connected in a conscious, ethical way with multiple people at the same time. And so if you can look at it from the ethical non-monogamy standpoint, which is really taking responsibility for yourself and your needs and getting them met through yourself and through the people around you. So honoring the authentic connection with each individual.
Got it. Okay, cool. So now understanding it deeper, I had this sequential idea in my mind at the same time. Yep. So, okay, how do you feel about yourself when you talk about that?
Well, it feels a little edgy to be sharing. It was very much an experimental time of my life where I was trying to figure out who I was and where I was going through the connections and the people around me. So I was really seeking externally at the time.
Okay. I understand the first woman, not the first woman, the woman really helped you understand that you weren't alone in that transition. And what was it you learned from the man?
Whew, wow. He taught me how to consciously connect with others and how to be vulnerable, how to share myself, and how to really ask for what I want from an authentic, true place and be non-attached to the result. So it was the first time that, okay, this is a good example. He was interested in my roommate, and I think he said something along the lines of like, hey, would you be open to me like connecting with your roommate? And I'm like, in my house? Like, and my mind just went crazy of like, oh my God, like they might be just like having sex in the next room and I can hear everything. And like, oh my God, it shattered me. So this was this perfect opportunity to learn how to release attachment that he gave me. So I actually released attachment to that dynamic between him and I, and it created more spaciousness and freedom in the connection. So I got to feel the grief, the pain, the frustration, the anger, whatever came up for me at the time. And it really created this huge emotional reaction, which was really positive for me because I had been so emotionally suppressed for so long.
Got it. And, you know, for the people who aren't watching your face as you describe him asking you about that, what was the emotion that you experienced when he asked to date your roommate in addition to you?
Disbelief.
Okay.
It was just like, what? Where did that come from? What?
And why was that so triggering for you?
It felt a little bit like he was wanting to date my sister. Like that kind of level where it was taking my home environment, and now, of course, this is what we're looking for, but it was taking my home environment and taking the relationship that was supposed to be mine and sharing it with everyone in it. And it felt not okay at the time.
And it shows, and for those who aren't physically watching this again, Tracy's face is very pronounced, and there's lots of blinking and nodding and some quick reactions in her face as she talks about this. Emotionally. Yeah, it's very pronounced in her way that, you know, you were talking about this. And my question to you is like, why did you put up with that?
Well, at the time, it was a question. He was like, would you be open to this? And my initial response was, fuck no. But I allowed myself to actually explore it. Of like, okay, like I actually don't have control over him. I can't be like, no, if there's connection there, you can't explore that. It felt important for me to go through that thought process of this could happen. And similar to how Kova and I release attachment to each other, we release the attachment by actually experiencing emotionally the potential outcomes of something. So, for example, releasing attachment to Kova being with someone else, or to Kova's dying, or to us not living together, or us losing our friendship. Whatever it is, that is actually how we release attachment. So that was actually my first conscious, not quite aware that I was releasing attachment, but that was the first time I actually released attachment.
Got it. And, you know, sounds like it was really emotional and it took a lot out of you to do that. So what was it within you that thought it was important to go forward with that?
I wanted to honor his request. He had a request and I was like, well, he must want it for some reason. I'm going to explore it.
But what about honoring yourself?
Well, I did.
But you said no.
Well, I didn't say no. I actually processed it. And then was open to the possibility as long as it wasn't in my house.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So you met this man first, right after being in a 5-year relationship with a woman. Mm-hmm. And he starts authentically expressing what he wants to you. Mm-hmm. And it makes you react.
No. he was so calm and it was so normal for him that I actually received it really well. So internally I was saying fuck no. Okay. But externally I was like, right now that doesn't feel, I don't even know what I said, honestly. But I basically was like, I don't know right now. I'll get back to you.
Got it. Okay.
And then I went through this processing journey. But he taught me how to communicate in a way that was really transparent and honest because he was used to having multiple partners. And he taught me how to consciously communicate with them, including nonviolent communication. That was the first time I was introduced to nonviolent communication.
Okay, NVC. And okay, so I'm understanding the woman represented the ability to be reflected what your ex was reflecting to you and for you to transition to doing things on your own. And then this man, what did he represent in regards to your transition out of your 5-year relationship?
Conscious non-monogamy. And also a push to figure things out by myself because he was going through a dark night of the soul at the time. So our relationship wasn't able to go very far or very deep, and we saw each other fairly infrequently. So it gave my mind the safety of thinking that I was in relationship and in connection. But in reality, there wasn't much there because he was emotionally unavailable to me.
I'm understanding that you were attracting people that were like you were technically in a relationship with, but in reality, they were like teaching you to be on your own.
Yes, the universe was brilliant on that one.
Well, it's funny because, from the outside, it might have looked like you were actually in relationships with these people, but internally you were like not at all. Like you didn't have that like mutual support of a like a committed partner.
Yeah. I found that I was supporting him, but he wasn't necessarily available to support me. Which was to no fault of his own.
Okay. Okay, so that was the second one. Are we missing anything in regards to him and in the importance of that relationship and the transition out of the 5-year relationship?
He brought a level of play and exploration and normalized emotions for me in a beautiful way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Which I really appreciate.
Well, it already sounded like you had just mentioned that time he asked you that question and then you went and you're like, I'm going to go look at this myself. And then... But that doesn't sound like something you would have done in your relationship before then.
Oh, absolutely not. No, this is completely new.
Did you even know how to do that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I just cried. So I just let go. I felt, I cried. I processed in the way that I knew how at the time, which was just like kind of have a meltdown. And then I came back to it and was like, okay, well, it wasn't the cleanest processing. I did talk to a couple people about it that I really shouldn't have talked to. I was processing with people that were more involved in the situation than would have been responsible or respectful.
Okay. And so in retrospect, what would you have done differently?
Probably confide in a close friend.
That weren't involved, basically?
Yes. Rather than my roommate's romantic partner. Romantic interest.
Gotcha.
It was a terrible idea.
And so in retrospect to past Tracy, what would you have told her to do differently?
What would I have told past Tracy? No, she was figuring it out. I was in a phase of trial and error, and that was part of my trial and error. And yeah, some of it worked and some of it didn't work. And I was figuring out how to process my emotions and come into a place of clarity.
So those first 2 relationships, before we go into the third, that ultimately were all occurring at the same time, what worked and what didn't work?
What worked really well for the first one was she was really supportive. She was there for me. We were there for each other. We were moving through a lot. We were able to talk about what we were moving through. It was a beautiful, supportive relationship. And we had fun together, and we would go on adventures and go to shows and check out art. Yeah, it was a great time. There wasn't necessarily like a really deep connection there. It was more a transition relationship.
Got it.
With him, he brought his wealth of expertise and experience around ethical non-monogamy and how to communicate clearly and introduced me to climbing, rock climbing. And I feel so grateful for that because all of a sudden I was in this completely new community and I found that people who climb generally are really open to meeting someone and then climbing with them right after. So they actually follow through on the engagement that they planned on. So it created this whole new group of friends for me and got me in great shape.
Okay. What did work and what didn't work?
What didn't work there is that I was wanting more from him than he was able to give at the time. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it was exactly what I needed on my journey and for my growth. And at the same time, it was a little bit painful and frustrating sometimes.
Yeah. And anything that didn't work from the transitionary relationship?
Just that it was a short-term thing. It wasn't necessarily a long-term connection. There wasn't a lot of attraction there. It was more just a supportive connection.
And now let's go on the third person involved in this.
Yes.
Why were they significant to your journey?
So it was interesting. I actually met her at a festival that I went to with the guy that I was dating and another friend. And I remember the first time I saw her, she was wearing like long khaki shorts and was topless. And we were dancing to Closey. And it was just the most amazing thing. So we had this like really sexy dance and we had this immediate connection, and I almost saw myself in her. And I was really drawn to her, partly for that reason. And our connection ended up deepening in this beautiful way where we actually stayed in connection for over a year, even when we weren't dating. And that was just, what was that? I almost felt like she was holding my hand along my journey, even when she wasn't there. So I was able to share everything that I was moving through, and she was this external support system to be like, yeah, Tracy, you're doing great. Here's what I'm moving through.
Yeah.
And that was really, really powerful.
What did you learn from that relationship?
We didn't have very many interactions in person. We hung out the first time we met. I remember we had an awkward dinner with the man I was dating and her at the time. And at least I found it awkward. I think I probably had extra meaning of what it meant to bring these people together. We were hanging out with her and the man I was dating and me, and I was planning on going to a festival with her, really centered around connection to the earth and connection to humans, an ecocentric perspective. So I was about to go to this 3-day festival with the woman, and it was centered around ecosexuality, deep connection to the earth, and really embracing all of the magic and the energy in nature and in the earth. And I kept getting a nudge to go to Burning Man, and it was at the same exact time.
Will you tell me about that experience of that nudge for Burning Man? Like, where were you? What was happening? How did you know that was where you were going? How did you even find out about Burning Man?
So my roommate was going, and the man that I was dating were going.
Got it.
And I was really curious about it. It's like, why are people going to the desert for 10 days straight, needing to be completely self-reliant, bringing everything they could possibly need in that time? It's going to be extremely hot during the day and potentially extremely cold at night. It's like, why are people wanting to do this? And I'm like, I think this is somewhere I need to be.
Okay.
It was
I
just
imagine they were telling you about this, and then you had a knowing about it.
So my roommate had applied and gotten tickets, and she was going, she was packing, she was planning for it, she was organizing with all her friends, she was telling me about it. It was just a part of the conversation in my daily home.
Got it. Okay.
So, and then my partner at the time, he was going too, and I was like, well, there's something here. And I got to a place where I'm hanging out with the two of them. I'm like, I really think I'm supposed to go to Burning Man. And she's like, yeah, you are. I don't even know what she said, but I knew she was holding the manifestation for me and creating it for me. So I got a call a couple minutes later being like, hey, Tracy, I have a ticket for you. You can come with us, camp with us. You need to bring a tent, but we'll bring you. We have a van. And that was my ticket to Burning Man.
And how did that relate to that third woman that you were dating at the same time that you said was kind of short, but you didn't go to the ecosexuality thing with her?
Oh, she was the one that manifested it for me.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I see all these different parts are playing together right now.
Yes, exactly. So they all met each other. It was all interconnected.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you got a ticket to Burning Man.
And then I got a ticket to Burning Man, which changed everything. Absolutely everything. So here I was thinking that I was going to go to Burning Man. And I was solo camping or rogue with my new friend who I had hung out with twice. And her best friend that they were going to Burning Man as a way to reconnect. So really, I was just this third party showing up with them. So I received this ticket 2 days before they were leaving. So I had 2 days to buy everything I could possibly need for Burning Man.
Tracy and I went this past year, and it took us weeks and weeks and weeks to be able to get ready and get everything that we needed. And it's a whole process. To be able to do it within 2 days is quite extraordinary. And, it must have been a challenge too, to even be able to cross in from where you were to actually getting there, right? Because, the whole getting out of Burning Man is there's a name that describes the leaving of Burning Man, Exodus.
The whole thing was easy.
The whole thing was easy?
The whole thing was easy. We had a dust storm our year. We didn't have one when I went.
Gotcha. Well, I'm talking about the whole experience of going on to the playa specifically and getting ready for the burn. Can you tell the people who are listening to this, what went through your head when you realized that you only had 2 days to prepare for this?
So luckily, my friend who encouraged me to move out of my old apartment had been to Burning Man multiple times and had a packing list. My partner had a packing list and my roommate had a packing list. So I was so supported in this, and I was working in tech remotely. So I didn't really have that many responsibilities. So I did what I needed to do, and then I went shopping, and I just bought everything that I needed and took 2 full days to buy everything. I happened to find a burner bike that was $100 on Facebook Marketplace that she got for someone who was going to go to Burning Man, and they didn't need it. So everything was just so easy. I went to a thrift shop. They had a fur coat for me to keep me warm. It was literally everything I could ever need. The people that I went with, they had an entire costume box that we could all share. So I didn't even need to have an extensive costume box. Costume.
Yeah, just the costumes took me weeks.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was so incredibly supported. Really, all I needed was the bike, the lights, some clothes, something to keep me warm. I already had my backpacking tent, which was too small. I needed rebar to make sure it would actually stay in the ground, because it had to go down pretty deep or else the wind could blow it away. So I had some extra things that I had to buy, but really I was so supported in the process. It was surprisingly easy.
And what were the people who have known you your whole life? What did they think about all of this?
Well, I don't think they even knew that I went to Burning Man until after. I'm not sure I told them. I was in such a whirlwind to just get ready and go. I guess most of the people that have known me, my family, they didn't quite understand it.
Yeah, I mean, because
why would you want to spend 10 days in the desert at this crazy party where everyone's on drugs? That sounds weird.
That's just the perception of Burning Man, which isn't completely true. It's sometimes true. I want to take a second to scale out right now, because when we look at what occurred, right? You got fired from your job, you left a 5-year relationship, you started dating new people that all taught you different things, and then you got invited to Burning Man, in which everything was given to you and it was easy to actually get to that transformational experience. When you look at that now, what are the big themes of
and this was
that
all
experience?
In a 6-month period.
So reflecting on that now, it's how do you see all of these people and this trajectory? Why do you think that path was given to you now that you look back at it?
From an astrological perspective, I was in my Saturn return.
Got it.
That was basically a time to find where I was out of alignment with myself and my path, and to figure out who I was. So that was a big part of it, that basically I'd stayed in this tech job too long, and then when things started moving, everything started moving really, really, really fast.
Got it.
So I was in the relationship too long, I was in the tech job too long, and I was holding on to my old life, and the universe just shoved me out.
Yeah, so that all happened really quickly, right? Like all these new people, all these new experiences that showed you different sides of you, and then an invitation that eventually ended up changing the trajectory of your life.
100%. So what was the significance of all of it? Essentially just needing to change directions, and that what I was doing wasn't working. And that I was in a place where I felt so stagnant and so stuck that I needed massive shifts in order to actually move forward.
Got it. I like to say that, either you can listen to the call or life will hit you in the face and make you change.
Yeah, that was it.
So life hit you in the face and made you change.
Very much so. And I made lemonade out of those lemons.
Yeah, you did. And it also sounds like those relationships were really pivotal and, bringing you back to yourself and really helping you align to your path. It sounds like they were the mentors and the guides along the way that helped you eventually get to, at least this next stage in the journey.
Just like how the friend that I went to Burning Man with, who I'd only met twice, she was a catalyst in my life. She's an Aries. And every time that she would come back into my life, she would help align me into the direction that I needed to go next, which was really, really helpful. That's a little bit of foreshadowing.
Is there anything that I'm not seeing or that you're forgetting that you think is imperative to be able to communicate about the transition from the known into the unknown and the supernatural aid that was sent to you to get you onto your correct path?
So because my 5-year relationship was over, I all of a sudden felt like I had so much more freedom. I had the freedom before, of course, but I didn't recognize it until after the relationship ended. So I started trying all these new things. And where I actually met this male partner was at an authentic relating event. I think it was the week after Valentine's Day, and it was centered around love, and that was the theme. And my ex had broken up with me 2 days before Valentine's Day, to give you some context here. So it was really, really, really fresh. And I'm at this authentic relating thing. I had no idea what that is. We're like gazing into each other's eyes and asking each other really personal questions, which honestly, I've always asked people really personal questions to the point where my sister would be like, Tracy, you can't ask people that. But so that part was normal for me. But the gazing into people's eyes felt really uncomfortable. And that was new for me at the time. And I went down to the bathroom, and we were about to pair off and do some exercise for a longer period of time. So I went downstairs, came back up, and everyone was paired. And there was one person left over, and it's this very, very tall man. And I was like, I don't want him to be my partner. I wanted someone to be like, I still had a lot of stories around men and my relationship with men and safety at the time. So I felt like I was in a really tender place, and I did not want to be paired with a man. And here I was paired with him. And he and I had both gone through a breakup as well. So he had just gotten divorced, and he was processing that. I know. And he was really open and vulnerable with me, and I cried in front of him because what he was opening up within me felt safe to express. And it was also very, very fresh and on the surface. So I ended up crying in front of him, and I think that actually created a connection in which he felt like he was able to connect with me deeper. Mm-hmm. So that was actually how we met each other. And he invited me to go rock climbing with him. And we realized that we were attracted to each other when we were both climbing, watching the other person climb. And that's how our relationship started. So everything was just very, very synchronistic. Yeah. And it all unfolded so naturally just by me taking these little steps to do something new that was out of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. Am I understanding that you met him after like a week of breaking up with your ex?
Yes.
How do you think your ex felt about that?
Oh, I think she had some feelings about it. Honestly, I was running away from the pain of the breakup, and I didn't have the space or the self-responsibility to actually create that for myself and to take the time to process it. So when she opened up our relationship to be poly 2 weeks earlier because she was interested in a coworker, I started looking online and started online dating. So that's how I found the first woman. Yeah. So by the time he came around, we had already been poly for 2 weeks, and then we broke up.
You guys were only poly for 2 weeks before you broke up?
Yes.
That was it's like 1 foot out, 1 foot in, basically. It wasn't really poly. It was I'm too scared to break up with you, and this is what I see as the next step.
Yes. And at the same time, what I took away from it was that it was a new way of relating that was new for me.
Got it.
And I had never experienced polyamory before, or the concept that I could be a part of that. So when she actually brought it to me, it felt freeing, and it felt like something I wanted to explore.
Okay, got it.
So it was actually
So he actually wasn't the first person who brought you the poly idea. It was your ex that was like, oh, let's open the relationship, which gave you the freedom to be able to explore and then meet other people.
Exactly.
And then she got a taste of her own medicine once you started dating someone within 2 weeks.
Yes. And I do remember her asking me, like, because she broke up with me. and I remember her asking me or saying something along the lines of, how come you're so okay right now? Like, I feel like I'm the one that got broken up with.
Interesting.
Yeah. And really what I'm seeing there is basically that I was running away from my emotions and from our relationship by jumping into others.
That's a common downside of polyamory, honestly. It's people use it as a way to be able to not be fully committed or not actually break up with someone when they need to be broken up with, or to distract themselves from what they're actually experiencing. There's a lot of negative sides to polyamory.
And when it's done well and ethically and in integrity, it can be incredibly beautiful. So I do want to put that in there as well.
Yeah. And you weren't relating at that level yet at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love the idealism, but let's be realistic as to where you were then.
However, I was actually communicating with everyone about each other. So they were all aware of each other and the different dynamics.
Got it. And was there any point of you at that time that was like any bit conscious that you were running away from addressing your experience of the breakup?
Nope. I had no idea. I was just like, oh, let me just do all these things now.
And I know in our conversations over the last many years, you realized that you never actually processed the breakup, and then you have since processed a lot of the breakup. So is there anything that you would have done differently, or would you look back and tell yourself something in retrospect?
No, I think that was exactly what I needed at the time. It was perfect. It basically felt like I had been waiting to live. And so when she broke up with me, all of a sudden I was like, oh, I have so much permission to do whatever I want. Mm-hmm. And it felt really, really freeing and really expansive. So I took that opportunity fully.
Got it.
To express and explore and do all the things, and dove in head first.
And that path basically led you to Burning Man.
It did.
Which we'll be discussing in the next episode. There's a lot involved with Burning Man, and it's a whole experience in itself. But I'm understanding that when you look back at that part of yourself, you know and understand why you responded in the way that you responded. And you've also addressed that part of you that didn't get addressed when you did start to run.
Yes, I have since taken responsibility for that part. Yeah. And I've come a long way. If I were to go through that experience again today, I would do it very differently. However, it was exactly what I needed at the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So she felt like you broke up with her instead of you actually being broken up by her.
Yes.
How did that feel hearing that?
I felt understanding because I was having a lot of fun and having a lot of experiences and doing all these things. And I also felt a little bit sad for her. Yeah, because I wanted what was best for her. And it was just that I wasn't able to meet her fully in the way that she was needing.
What was the wound that got you to be in that relationship?
Oh, there was no wound. No, that was perfectly aligned. Like she could have been my life partner if I had been emotionally available.
I mean, obviously she wasn't your life partner,
she wasn't
though.
my life partner.
Yeah, so that story is not accurate.
Our relationship was easy from my perspective. It just flowed. We had a lot of fun together. We really enjoyed our time together. It was just natural and easy. Was there any wound that drew me to her?
And by that, I mean, like, with the conscious uncoupling process, one of the things that you do in the steps is, like, identify the core wound that caused you to choose that partner, which is a negative belief system. Chose me. Interesting. Okay.
So I think that she may have chosen me for some of my covert narcissist tendencies and behaviors. And probably the emotional unavailability. I'm guessing she may have chosen me for those traits. But I actually didn't choose her.
Tell more.
We met, oh goodness. Well, we met in college. And in college, I went through an even more irresponsible phase where I would get super drunk and hook up with all these people. It was a learning experience for me.
You're getting to know Tracy pretty well in this, and that is the point of it.
You get to see all my shadows and mistakes.
She's a little embarrassed right now, actually.
So in college, I was drunk one night, and we ended up dancing together. And I remember just like thinking she was attractive and just like throwing myself on her. We started making out, and I was like, cool, that was fun. I don't think we'll ever see each other again. Then she invited me to do homework with her during the week. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm always down for like studying together. Why not? It's always a good idea. It helps productivity. And we ended up talking the whole time. And about halfway through, she kisses me. And I was like, what?
And for those who are not watching, Tracy's head is shaking back and forth in confusion.
Surprised and confused, bewildered. And I did not see it coming. I literally thought we were there to do homework together and to study. And she was actually interested in creating a relationship with me. So she actually was the one that instigated that.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
And we had great conversations. I remember one time we were up till 4 a.m. I was dropping her off at campus because I lived off campus. And she had come to visit me. And I think I dropped her off at like midnight. And then we stayed in my car for 4 hours talking because our conversation was just so riveting. So like there was just like this beautiful, deep connection between the two of us. And we had so much fun and play between us to the point where we would run across the parking lot with airplane arms outstretched, and be airplanes around each other and make sounds. And it was just really fun and silly and playful. And it was this element that I was really desiring in a partner.
Why was it confusing and bewildering to you when she kissed you?
Well, I thought it was a drunk hookup. I didn't think it was going to continue in real life.
You got confused because you were surprised that she wanted to continue the relationship after a drunk hookup?
I was. That was my first time that had ever happened, and there were many. Yeah. Are you speechless?
I think it speaks for itself, honestly.
It does. Yeah. So I learned a lot through that relationship too.
Well, I mean, you still had the choice to be in the relationship.
I did.
Why did you choose to be in the relationship?
Because she was amazing. And being around her felt great. I felt so alive around her. I felt playful and full of energy, and like anything was possible. Yeah. It was really expansive. I remember the first time that I ever saw her naked. I thought she looked like an angel. So it was just really this beautiful, beautiful connection. With mistakes along the way, of course.
Yeah, and you know, I've also heard you say that you said that it's lasted too long. So at what point was the relationship actually done?
Probably around the same time that I was done with my job. So I would say probably around 3 years.
Okay, and you stayed it for 2.5 years longer?
2.
Why?
It was comfortable. It was familiar. It was what I knew. I had an apartment with her. I had built my life with her. And I was recognizing that our relationship kind of had lost some passion. And so I started buying all these like different lingeries to try to make it spicier. And it wasn't working. It was a me problem. And I had this plan. I was like, okay, we're going to, like, if we were going to have kids, like, how would that look? Like, what would it look like if we got married? And I was starting to plan buying a house. So I was talking to her about all these different houses and showing her all these houses. And she was just, like, not excited about it. I wasn't sure why. And it turns out that she wanted to break up with me, which was, I feel so grateful for her for breaking up with me because it was not in alignment anymore. It was time.
Well, I mean, you stayed together for 2 years after.
Yeah.
That,
and so she had the courage to actually do it.
So I'm curious, like, why didn't you, like, even if it, like, why did you stay even though it was comfortable, even though he was out of alignment?
Oh, because I loved her. And I cared for her deeply. And I wanted to support her. And I didn't want to lose my best friend. Mm. Yeah. So there was some attachment there. Mm-hmm. Because it was what I knew and it was comfortable. And I didn't know anything else.
And I know, you know, I've also had conversation about this, like this attachment to like what life was supposed to look like. Like you find the person, you buy the house, you have the kids. I call it the relationship elevator. Yes. It's like the natural sequential way of having a relationship. And you had this like preconceived notion of doing that with her.
Yeah.
So I'm curious though, like you stayed with her because you loved her, but you were also, it was out of alignment for you.
It was more that I didn't want to lose her as a friend.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Because, like, she was my best friend. I did everything with her. To the point where this was a learning that I actually took forward in my current relationship, where we had all the same friends. That wasn't a great solution for when we broke up.
Got it. Okay, so your fear of losing her as a friend ultimately led you to stay in the relationship longer than you should have.
It wasn't conscious, honestly.
Yeah.
All I knew is it was kind of like a plant dying. And just seeing the plant slowly dying and not sure exactly what to do or how to fix it and trying all these things and it not quite working. And then at some point the plant is dead. And I think I didn't realize that it was hopeless until she broke up with me.
And then freedom.
Yeah. So I was definitely not aware of what was happening.
That's why I asked that question, because when you look at the conscious uncoupling framework, it's like, what is the belief system that is unconscious that created said thing to happen? And it sounds like you had attachment to losing her as a friend and didn't want to lose her as a friend. And you're also looking outside of yourself for the solution too, but in reality it was totally, and you knew. Did you know earlier?
That it was me problem?
That it was wrong and not in alignment?
I think a part of me knew that it was coming to a close and that it wasn't working, but it wasn't not working. It was just dead.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a plastic flower instead of a real flower.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like cohabitating and doing life together, but it wasn't actually fulfilling in any way by the end.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it was great.
For the first 3 years, it sounds it was great. Yeah. Okay.
And I was also a catalyst for her.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have moved to Colorado without me. She wouldn't have met her wife without me. Because they met in Colorado. And I encouraged her to follow her path and what was true for her around a career. And she just really wanted to be a teacher. And I'm like, that's great. Do that. So she became a teacher while we were together. So I basically created this stability and this financial safety net for her to follow what she was interested in.
And then life hit you in the face. That's how it goes.
Life hit me in the face. And I learned a lot and changed. And I feel very grateful for that experience as well.
I really think I understand now. And I think you understand now too, where you were out of alignment. And you even mentioned like life occurred in a way that made me change paths because I didn't do it myself. And it ended up being one of the best things that's happened to you.
100%. Yeah. Most people would look at a breakup and being fired as like, oh no, that's awful. I'm so sorry. And for me, I was like, oh, thank God. And I could have taken it a very different way too, depending on.
My understanding from this conversation, though, is that like all these people that you met along the way were very synchronistic, and almost it was just like a flow and an ease in terms of all the steps that were taken after that specific thing occurred.
Yes. It was surprisingly easeful.
And Burning Man is surprisingly non-easeful. It's notorious for not being easy to get to at all and getting everything ready to. So that in itself is a
that
significant
was so easy.
accomplishment. Yeah. And we'll be talking more about that the next time we talk about Tracy's story and what's led her to become the co-host with me on the Revolution of Purpose podcast.
And now that you've gotten a good taste of my sexual escapades and and my mistakes and my shadows and my oopsies.
I think we're just getting started, actually.
Did we? Oh, we are. There's more learnings to come. There are more.
I mean, Saturn return itself is, it's the planet Saturn is all about coming into adulthood and maturity. So a lot of this is going to be learning about all the mistakes that she and I have both made to get ourselves where we go. And the continuous ones that you and I continue to make as we learn.
Yes. Beautiful.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Revolution of Purpose podcast as Tracy and I share our stories in the journey, the inner and the external journey that eventually culminated in finding and aligning to our true purposes and being of service in alignment with our purposes. Thank you so much for tuning in, and more to come. Please invite those that you think would find benefit in this, or those that might get a good laugh, or somewhere in between. There is so much more juice to come in the transformational journeys that Tracy and I have had individually, and eventually the merging of together. Stay tuned.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening.